Okay, is that just gonna grab the back of your head, or are we gonna be okay there? Probably move the camera rather than trying to keep your head up. All right, perfect. Hang on just 1 second, Gus, because I want to make sure everybody knows this. We have a test on Thursday. That would be September 17th. Let me take a quick look over here. Then we go and do a little bit more work, and our next one is on September 29th. There you go. You're aware of the next two tests. There's one this Thursday. There's one on Tuesday, September 29th. So that's the next one coming up afterwards. All righty. Remember, if I do not give you specific homework, it means you need to be working your notes. You need to look at them every night. If you have something you think, well, I know what this means now, but maybe a week from now when I'm studying, I won't know that. That's a good thing to rewrite in complete sentences. Always a good idea. Okay, Gustav, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, what's the heading for this?
We can start this one off with Connecticut, New Hampshire. We're picking up 2 more colonies right now. Yes, sir. Up, loud, voice. You need to have a test?
Yeah.
Oh, babe, you don't need one. You want one. This is so good. So good. All right, true story. When I went to college, the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, my eyes were open to the advantages I had at Brookfield Academy. You know, one of the biggest advantages was, and I'm not making this up, it was exams. Exams were the most beautiful thing ever. Hated them when they were going on. Was all nervous anticipating them, but they were nothing by the time I got to college. Tests were nothing by the time I got to college. You might say, oh, geez, this is such a pain, but you're going to have a bunch of them. No one of them is going to just kill your grade or make your grade perfect. There are a lot of grades. That's the way I mostly take your grades for history class. But when I got to college, we sat down. I can't remember what the first exam I took there was, a 2.5 hour exam. And there were people there who had never taken a test longer than about 20 minutes.
What?
And their minds were just blown. They didn't know this could happen. This was just a little slice of purgatory for them. They thought, this is awful. And it was really a giant nothing. So taking tests and such, it may seem kind of like a pain, but it's so good for you. You get used to it. It becomes not a problem. It's just something that people do when they're in school. All right, let's talk about Connecticut. Connect that cut. Make sure you can spell it correctly, because this is, what is this? This would be your third colony. You have Virginia. You have Massachusetts. Roger Williams went off and started Rhode Island. And now you're going to get Thomas Hooker, another Puritan minister, starting the colony of Connecticut. And this is really an easy one. Thomas Hooker, he's in Massachusetts. And he wants to go, his flock, his people that listen to him at services every Sunday, they want some better farmland. Everybody look, they've been going west, but guess what? Roger Williams already has Rhode Island there, so they have to go up and over, and they follow down the Connecticut River Valley because it's really rich land. So Thomas Hooker and a bunch of Puritans start Connecticut for the land, because it is really rich farmland. Okay, so that's the only reason. They weren't unhappy being Puritans. They stayed Puritans. They liked being Puritans. As a matter of fact, Jonathan Winthrop Jr. became their governor. Remember, Jonathan Winthrop Sr., Daddy, he was the governor of Massachusetts and the main minister. Well, Jr. becomes the governor and main minister of Connecticut. Then there is New Hampshire. Okay, you guys have got to start getting these notes ahead of time. Okay, because we can't just copy them all in class. You and I can only see like 4 lines at a time, or it'll take 80 minutes to go through class, and we only have 40. So make sure you're seeing these ahead of time. We're up yesterday. Okay, got to get them on Google Classes. Now there's 2 more places you're familiar with, Maine and New Hampshire. Do not put Maine on your list of colonies. Maine was never a separate colony. It remained a part of Massachusetts. It did become a proprietorship for somebody. And if you want to remember who the proprietor of Maine is, all you have to do is think of me. Okay, it's really easy. If you want to remember the proprietor of Maine, just think of me. His name is Ferdinando. How do you say it?
Jorge.
What? Gorgeous. It's so obvious. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ferdinando Gorgeous and another fellow by the name of John Mason were given this grant of land. Now, what would be every look? What is now the light blue and the green? That together was given to them. And they said, well, let's split this. So Ferdinando Gorgeous took a bigger portion. It's further north. It's a little bit rockier. It's not quite as fertile. He took Maine. It was never a separate colony. And the other fellow, John Mason, he took what would become New Hampshire. That is a separate colony. New Hampshire. So you have Virginia, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and now New Hampshire. That's 5. You're going to end up with a total of 7 for this test. Yes, sir. Well, when they split the land grant they got, one part became Maine, the other part became New Hampshire. All right, cool. Let's talk about King Philip's War.
Oh, war, what fun.
When the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, the chief up there was a man named Massasoit. Now remember, down in Virginia, that's Paul Hutton. That's somebody else that's a different area of the New World. This is up in Massachusetts, and the chief's name was Massasoit. And Massasoit, he thought that the English were the most amazing people he'd ever seen. I mean, come on. They have all of this cool equipment. They came in these incredible ships. They have guns, they have armor, they have metal tools, the likes of which the Indians have never seen. And he'd not seen something like that, so he was kind of blown away by it. He had 2 sons. Wamsutta, his older son, whom he gave an English name to also. Wamsutta was Alexander. And his younger son, Metacom, he gave the name Philip. Now, Massasoit was the king of his people. And for more than 30 years, he kept the peace. More than 50 years, he kept the peace. Because he just thought the English were something special. Yes, sir. How do you spell what? Can't you read it? Capital Massasoit. You can't see this, huh? Okay, we can make it bigger. Can you read it now? Okay. Okay. So, wow. He loved the English. He loved the English. Because he wasn't, but they weren't around when he was a young person, and he saw them in all their glory while he was already an adult. His sons, however, Wamsutta Alexander and Metacom Philip, grew up around the English. This was just a part of their lives. weren't nearly as impressed. Let's imagine it this way. You have the Novacek folks. They're off on vacation. They're in Africa. And James, mom and dad are driving around, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, they hit something. Mom and dad jump out of the Jeep. They take a look back. Two dead natives. Ooh, they killed two African natives. So, they look around and they hear a little bit of crying, and there's a little baby boy over in the bushes. Man, what are they going to do? So they get their heads together and they say, okay, we have to do the reasonable right thing. So they put the bodies in the back, and they take the little boy up on mom's lap, and they drive over to the village. And they say, okay, I'm sorry. This is what happened. We didn't see him coming out of the bush. It was just an accident. So we want to do the right thing. We brought their bodies back, and here's their little son. And the chief of the tribe says, well, that's great. We appreciate that. We'll bury them properly. And by the way, according to our laws, he's your son now. And so all of a sudden, the Novacek have a little African baby. The little African baby, let's say he's 8 years old. And they take him home, and they come into their house in, where you live, what city? In Menominee Falls. And mom walks in, says, okay, come on in. And the little boy says, whoa. The sun go down, the sun come up. The sun go down, the sun come up. The sun go down, the sun come up. And mom says, yeah, okay, great, this is cool, come on over, and would you like something to drink? He says, yes. And so she opens the refrigerator, hands him something. He goes, oh, it's sweeter in here. It's sweeter in here. Well, mom says, it's a refrigerator. It keeps things cold. Before you know it, he said, I have to visit the bushes. Mom says, well, we don't really go in the bushes here. Here, go in this little room and you'll figure it out. So she puts him in there. He comes out a little while later and he says, this is wonderful. Inside this room, there's a little lake. And you do your business in the lake, and then you push this thing, and the lake goes away. And a new lake comes up. And he just thinks this is the most amazing thing, because he was raised to a certain age not seeing this, and now he sees it. He thinks these Americans are the most incredible thing. And he grows up, and he marries an American woman, and he has a couple of sons. And when his sons come to visit him, when they're grown men, and he's an old man, he says, just a second, let me show you something. My son, the sun go down, and the sun come up. Dad, it's a light switch. Get over it. It's winter in here. It's a refrigerator. Have I showed you the magic lake? Yes, it's a toilet. Well, they're not nearly as excited about the idea of all these modern things because they grew up around them. Same thing with Massasoit's children. They grew up around the English. They saw the tools. They saw the ships. They saw the guns. They saw the armor. They saw horses. They saw everything else that had so blown his mind was just a part of their daily lives. They could go over and see it. Well, Wamsuda had so liked the English that he had kept the peace for 50 years. But when he finally died, the next king of their people was his elder son, Wamsuda Alexander. And the English called him King Alexander. And King Alexander didn't care much for the English because he'd grown up around them, and he said, I think you made my father look foolish. You made him look silly and stupid and I don't like that. You didn't treat him with any respect. And the English are worried about this. So they capture Wamsuda Alexander. They capture King Alexander and they throw him into a cell in Plymouth. And they let him know, oh no, you're going to be a good little Indian and you're going to do what we tell you to do. And you're not going to cause any trouble. And you'll tell your people to do what we want them to do. And they keep him there until they think that he will agree to these things. And then they let him go. But while he was in the English camp, while he was in the English jail, he caught an English disease. And on the way home, Wamsuda dies. So King Alexander has died. The next person in line for the throne of his people would be the younger brother, Metacom Philip. So he now becomes King Philip. So when we're talking about King Philip's war, as we are right now, it's really important to understand King Philip is not European. King Philip is not English. King Philip is a Native American chief around Plymouth. Okay, so King Philip, just like his brother King Alexander, just like his father Massasoit, these are Indian chiefs. These are the leaders of their people, Indian kings. All right, so Metacom Philip, he's now in charge. And he doesn't care for the English at all. Because he not only thinks that the English made his father look silly, but he thinks they killed his brother. But he's a smart man. King Philip is a smart man. He says, look, there's no way my little Indian tribe of a couple of hundred people are going to push all these English out of here. Remember, we had 20,000 Puritans come over here. So there's no way my few hundred Indians can kick them all out. What I need, and he is the first leader of Native Americans to try this, what I need is a confederation. Remember, a loosely formed alliance. I need a lot of other tribes to come and fight with me, and we'll push the English right back into the sea, and then we'll be done with them. So that was his plan. It came to a head. There was a man named John Sassamon. John Sassamon. He was a Christian Indian. He was Native American and he had converted and become a Puritan. So he often came into Plymouth to go to Puritan services because Puritans went to church a lot. So John Sassamon was 100% a Native American. But he was a Puritan and he often came into Plymouth. He was found murdered. He was not found murdered in Plymouth, he was found murdered out in the countryside. So it was not really in the English area, but he was found by Englishmen. The English authorities did their investigation and said, we think it was other Indians who killed John Sassamon. And so they went to the Indian camp. King Philip was not there. He was off trying to get some more tribes to join his confederation. They went to the Indian village, and while they were there, they investigated, and they decided that 3 other Indians had killed John Sassamon. So they arrested them, and they brought them back to Plymouth, and they had a trial, and then they were hanged. They hanged those 3 other Native Americans. King Philip returned, and he is furious. He said, how could I possibly call myself a king if John Sassamon, who is a native, he's one of my people, even if he was killed by 3 other of my people, what do the English have to do with this? And why was he taken by the English out of my village? Why was he tried in an English court instead of by me? And why was he executed by an English government instead of by me? I can't call myself a king. I'm just a slave of the English if I allow this to take place. And so King Philip attacked. He and whatever other tribes he had that he had brought to his confederation, they attacked the English. It was a fierce and a bloody fight. From 1675 to 1676, it wasn't very long lasting, was King Philip's War. And 600 colonists and 3,000 Indians were killed. Why was it 5-1? Right? Absolutely, they had better weapons. The colonists had better weapons. Eventually, King Philip was killed. The English took King Philip's body, they chopped his head off, and they stuck it on the gate to Plymouth settlement, and they left it there for 20 years. Then they went to the Indian village, and they took King Philip's wife, they took King Philip's children, they brought them down to the Caribbean, and they sold them as slaves. These people were meant to be kings and queens in their land, and because of this war, they were taken out of their land and sold someplace where they had no status, they were just slaves. Yes, sir. Except everybody, 600 colonists, 3,000 Indians, can you see it? Yep, 1675 to 1676. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you sir. Yeah. Come here. Yep. I did more than 20 years, 25. Okay. Now, why would they do that?
No, don't call me.
Leave the handshake. James, give it a shot.
Well, I think like part of it is because like they're like considered the high-ranking within the rest of the Indians. They could like rally the Indians to like build an army or something.
Okay, hang on. James just hit on a huge one of the reasons, and that is they could rally the Indians. Maybe if his children were still boys or girls, maybe not now, but particularly back in that day and age, if he had a son, what happens when the son becomes an adult? Who was the big terrorist that did 9/11, that eventually was killed while President Obama was president? Osama bin Laden, okay? Who potentially could be one of America's worst enemies?
Yeah.
His kids, particularly his sons, yeah. In his culture, it would be sons again. His sons, yeah, would be very, very dangerous to America. Okay, because they want revenge. Hey, I didn't have a father anymore because you guys killed him. Well, the same is true with this. Let's get them out of here, throw them down. There's one other reason. Okay. The other reason is to prove yourself so fierce an enemy that no one would want to attack you. To prove yourself so fierce an enemy that no one would want to attack you. If you think about it. In 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 60,000 people went. A couple of days later, they dropped an atomic bomb on Nagasaki. 130,000 people went boom. And nobody attacked us for decades. Why? I mean, nobody attacked us at home for decades. Why? For fear of getting one of those bombs or more than one of those bombs. We were the nuclear power for a while. We're one of only a few still today. And we are the only country that has ever used nuclear weapons in war. So you can go, will Britain do it? Will France do it? Will Israel do it? Who will do it? Well, the United States has already done it. So I guess that'd be a good indicator we might. So that makes it dangerous. Now think about your own parents. All right, think of your parents. If they saw something that they really wanted to stand up against, and they said, no, I'm going to go fight for this. They say, even if I lose my life, I'm going to go fight for this. There are probably things that your parents would do that for. But now think about this. If I lose, you guys get taken halfway around the world and sold as slaves. Now would your parents do it? That's the point of making themselves so fierce an enemy that other Native American tribes would look and say, yeah, well, look what happened to King Philip. His wife and kids were taken who knows where, and they're slaves somewhere. I don't know if I want to risk that with my own family. So that's the reason, to become a fierce enemy. What do we got here? You got them all spelled properly? 5 colonies? Good boss.
Why did they colonize the upper half of the United States? Because weren't the Spanish like only in Mexico?
The Spanish were in Florida and along the Gulf Coast. Yes, sir.
What was the other reason why they
What?
What was the other reason why they
Well, let's see. The second one was that they wanted to be a fierce enemy. And the first one was not about the head hanging, but about the removing the kids. Was they didn't want them to come back and start the war over again. They didn't want them to come back looking for revenge because they were supposed to be, by birth, the leaders of their people. Then we had the Virginia, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire. All right, Candy, look over here. Look over here. No looking over there. Spell Massachusetts.
capital M, A S S E.
We've been perfect to this point. Uh-oh. It's up to you. Chloe. Oh, no, don't look at the board. Massachusetts, Dave, let's see what you got.
Capital M A S S A C H U C E S.
No, missed a little bit. Gotcha. Massachusetts.
MASSAS.
That's Massach. Nope.
Oh, no.
No, don't look down in the notebook.
Capital M A S S A C H U S E T T S.
Cool. Gus, Virginia.
Capital VIRGIA.
Nope.
No.
Sorry, you're up, Virginia.
Capital V.
Virginia.
Oh, wait.
No, don't look.
Capital VIR.
I don't want you to read it up. No, don't look.
I don't know.
Hit it, James.
VIR. What? Capital. I said capital.
I didn't hear that.
I said capital VIRGINA.
G-I-N-N.
GINA. Capital
Virginia. Right. Okay. Okay, let me see here. Dun, dun. Yes, New Hampshire. You're up.
New Hampshire. Capital N-E-W space capital H-A-M-E-S-H-I-R-E.
All right, that was easy. How about Rhode Island? Rhode Island. Okay, silent boy in the back, nice and loud.
Capital R-H-O-D-E space capital I-S-L-A-N-D.
Cool. Okay, you ready, Claire Bear? Let me see here. We've got Island, New Hampshire, Virginia. Where's Connecticut? Thank you. Connecticut.
Capital C-O-N-N-E. Wait, no. T-I-E-N-D.
Yep. Okay. What year was the Magna Carta signed? Okay, they can all answer. What year was Magna Carta? Who signed it?
King John.
And what year was Jamestown founded?
1407.
What year was the Declaration of Independence signed?
1956.
Jesus was born in what year?
Zero.
Life action came in.
1003.
1003
1003.
or 1003, you can say, okay, and then you have, the Spanish Armada was lost,
1558.
and, Columbus discovered America. What? Battle of Hastings. Okay. Who led the Normans in the Battle of Hastings? The Conqueror, okay. Cool.
I know, so she talks to
All right, folks.
you.
Is there anything we need to go back over in notes before I go on to another part?
No.
Did we miss anything? Are there any blanks in your notebook?
I think we missed land breed.
We missed what?
Land breed.
Land breed, I just eliminated it, don't worry about it. It's just that sometimes when people came over here, the nobles that were given large amounts of land, the people that were connected to the king, they wanted huge amounts of land. And sometimes people get ridiculous. I was in, actually, this is kind of weird. I was once traveling and I was about here and I ran across a historic marker and it said this was the edge of the largest cattle ranch in the Old West, which was, and I want to say it was something like, I think it was like 10 million acres, but it would have covered the entire city of El Paso and went through Texas and New Mexico, and I think it touched Arizona. This was a ranch. I mean, it's like, what could one person possibly do with that much land? But sometimes people want a lot. Okay, right. The what, huh? On this page? What about it? We just want to see it? Okay. Okay. Nothing else is missing? We're good? You get the test on Thursday? Here's what I'd like you to do when you go through your notes in the next couple of nights. That would be tonight and tomorrow night, so that you'd be ready for Wednesday. If you have any other questions, you need to ask them on Wednesday. I'm always happy to ask questions, but once you come into the room, well, with you guys, it's a little different because you come in at the start of the day, so we have a few minutes where you could ask a question. But once we hit 8:15 and it's test time, I'm not going to take other questions. And could you explain 7 things to me? This is your 40 minutes for writing the test, not your 40 minutes for getting questions answered. So always, again, when you're going over your notes and rewriting a little bit, highlighting, writing the different colors, whatever you're doing, if you have questions, make a mark on those too. Because the best thing you could do is at the start of class one day, just raise your hand and say, can I just ask you some questions about last night's film? And that'd be great. We can take care of that quickly. You good? Did I go on something else there? Pete, y'all don't put stuff away. No. Just called me up last night and said, can't we plug me in?
Thanks a lot, boss.
Yeah, God. Oh, that's just like that. Go in the chair. No, we take notes until 8:14 on Thursday.
Oh, yeah,
No, not
you
really.
guys.
Let me see here. So let's take a look at the next set, see if we can get these things finished early. Silver nail, silver nail. All right. Silver nail and big tub. Those are 2 different governors. Yeah. Hey, I'd like a nickname like Pete Talbot. All right, let's talk about New Netherlands. New Netherlands, up here, in the New York area. Now, the red lines that we have nowadays, showing the different states, that's that's not exactly where the colonies were. That's been solidified over the last few hundred years. But the Dutch were definitely on the island in what's now New York City and down a little bit into New Jersey area. So they were up in here, the Dutch. And they had a colony called New Netherlands. You have New England, New France, New Spain. So they had New Netherlands. Well, that was very original. And their governor was a fellow by the name of Peter Stuyvesant. Did you see to read it, or do I need to make it bigger? Okay? All right, Peter Stuyvesant. Peter Stuyvesant was an obnoxious human being. I mean, he was nasty, he was mean, he treated people like dirt.
You're good.
That's it. Yeah. No one, and I mean no one, liked Peter Stuyvesant. He was brutal. And Peter Stuyvesant, well, he was known as Old Silvernails because Peter Stuyvesant had a fake leg. It was a wooden leg. Yeah, that's what we're trying to talk about.
Yeah. Are you gonna talk about how they also would have known?
Cannonball.
Oh.
It was gone from the knee down.
Fun.
There we go. What happened was, from the knee down, he had a wooden leg. Up here, he had his own leg. And the way it was attached was, there was a strap, a harness that tied to his leg. Then it went down onto the wooden part, and because he was a fancy kind of a guy, the leather strap was driven into the wooden leg with silver nails. So the people kind of, as a nasty nickname, called him Old Silver Nails, because the fake leg was held on by silver nails. And Peter Stuyvesant, not a nice guy. Ooh, this is not correct here. My wife gave me a little help here with the idea that I don't want you to think Peter Stuyvesant bought Manhattan from the Indians for $24 worth of goods. That's not true. It was another Peter. It was Peter Minuit. These guys were looking for furs. That's what they were after. Fur was big business because you guys, when you go out in the winter, you got all kinds of cool stuff that keeps you warm. You got the neoprene, and you've got all sorts of good things that keep you from getting all wet and just unhappy in winter weather. They didn't have that. What they had was fur. You had to kill an animal and make some clothes out of it.
Fun.
Yeah. So Peter Stuyvesant, he's the Dutch governor of New Amsterdam. Let's see. I think I have time to read this. We'll give you an education today. You can start taking notes. This is just a good thing you'll know. You'll be brilliant. And again, please, when I tell you history, don't run around and tell everybody else before I tell it. They were the first minority on Manhattan. They were disliked and distrusted. They were objects of unflattering humor. They were called all sorts of names, one so insulting they adopted it into their own native language. They were the Holland Dutch. The Dutch were there first, you know. It was Dutchman Peter Minuit who purchased Manhattan from the Indians in 1626. The settlement was called New Amsterdam. That's what would become New York City. And would become the seat of government for the colony of New Netherlands. The Dutch West India Company paid little attention to the settlers at first. For 3 years, New Amsterdam attracted a rough bunch: privateers, smugglers, Sawyer, and so on. The first organized social system in the colony was a kind of feudalism. Huge estates with dozens of tenant families on each. The early governors and councils ruled without popular assemblies. and were renowned for their harshness. Meanwhile, the British were growing perturbed over the presence of New Netherlands and obtrusive interruptions in the sequence of their coastal possessions. In 1664, a small English naval force set out to capture the Dutch colony. The Dutch surrendered without firing a shot, because Peter Stuyvesant was so obnoxious, no one would fight for it. 7,000 of them decided to accept British rule in order to keep their homes. For a while, Anglo-Dutch relations were not bad, yet as hostilities developed between the respective motherlands, the English inhabitants of the colony, now known as New York, grew increasingly unfriendly toward the Dutch minority. First privately, ultimately publicly, the British New Yorkers began making fun. Anything negative was automatically characterized as being Dutch. Many related phrases remain a part of our vernacular. Anyone who is stern and hypercritical, we call a Dutch uncle. A Dutch treat, of course, is no treat at all. Have you guys ever heard of a Dutch treat? That's when two people go out on a date and each pay their own way. Getting into trouble, we refer to as getting into Dutch. The slurs don't stop there. Frogs used to be called Dutch nightingales. One who is said to have taken the Dutch route had killed himself. Dutch defense was surrender. Dutch praise was condemnation. Dutch courage came from a bottle. And a Dutch medley, that's when everyone sings a different tune simultaneously. And the list goes on. But there was one epithet to which the Dutch themselves particularly objected. You know how ethnic slurs often reflect the foods with which a minority may be identified? Well, the Dutch were supposedly characteristically fond of cheese. So the English began referring to the Dutchman as John Cheese. That upset the Dutch so much that they eventually turned the nasty nickname around, actually calling the Englishman John Cheese, in the language of the Netherlands, naturally. It was that epithet which made the most indelible impression of all. In time, the world would forget that a hangover was once defined as a Dutchman's headache, or that Dutch gold meant the phony stuff. What we remember is the unflattering term John Cheese, a label the Dutch ultimately laid on us. The way they said it was Yankees. Yankees. That's what a Yankee is. You're a John Cheese. Okay. So the New York baseball team is the New York John Cheeses. All right. Hey, you know what we need to do? Let's break some stuff.
What's it? What?
All right, get up, get out of the chairs. Oh, man, he's good. All right. The black jacket discovered gravity. Oh, Argos already out the door. What's special? What's special? What's special? Watch the buttocks, watch the buttocks, watch the buttocks. Over here. Come on. There you go, dear. All right. You shut it off.